This video is a refresher on types of research studies and different research methods. In this video, you will learn the definition and characteristics of research method types, some characteristics of each method type, how to identify methods and studies you find, and how to search for studies that use a particular type of method. Methods for conducting research can be quantitative or qualitative, or a mix of both, called mixed methods. The difference between quantitative and qualitative is in the name. Quant is like quantity. It deals in numbers. Quantitative methods focus on data and typically studies of large population or a large amount of data. It relies on statistical analysis to make conclusions and sometimes includes random sampling or control groups. Qualitative, on the other hand, deals in qualities, information that can't necessarily be quantified precisely. These research types focus on language and subjectivity. They use a small group or a small amount of data, but with less data, they can usually go in more in depth on the results and details. There is some data analysis, but is typically discussed within the context of the data and can't necessarily be used to conclude generalizations outside of this context. Qualitative research studies can even be focused on small groups of people or even individuals called case studies. Let's see some examples. Let's take a look at an example of a study that uses quantitative methods. This article analyzes visitor data to national parks and how that affects crime in the area. You can tell quantitative studies because they usually include detailed charts or tables dealing with large amounts of data. In this case, county population and crime data. Purely quantitative studies also include discussions of statistics or statistical models to analyze this data. These articles can be very math-heavy. It's often easiest to first read the conclusions and results after the introduction, then second, review the statistical tables and charts, and then read the body of the article once you have a good understanding. Let's take a look at an example of a study that uses qualitative methods. This article focuses on a small sample of military families that have children with autism. The authors use structured interviews to research the experiences of this population. In the method area, you can see why they chose this method. There is limited information about this topic, and they are looking for experiences. Experiences are difficult to measure quantitatively. Instead, the authors found participants that fit their criteria and interviewed them and conducted a questionnaire. Both of these are qualitative methods. You can see from this table, instead of looking at generic population and crime data like the previous example, each participant is listed. Detailed information is included that would not be possible with a large population. The interviews were analyzed in another table. To report the results of the interviews and open-ended questions, results can be presented by ways of block quotes from the research participants. And the authors can then discuss key themes that arise from these answers by ways of drawing comparisons, or coding and presenting the results in a table. While this shows numbers and percentages, the population is small and interviews are also quoted and discussed later in detail. This is a great example of a qualitative study. This is an example of a mixed methods study. Mixed methods is when authors use a mixture of different research methods types. In this example, there are multiple qualitative methods, including an analysis of therapy sessions, in-depth interviews, and questionnaires. Sometimes mixed method studies are using quantitative and qualitative methods together. So they're using in-depth information they get from qualitative research and putting it in the context of national or regional statistics. To find articles that fit a specific research method, it can be as simple as adding an extra keyword in your search to your databases. If I search for autism and services, maybe I'm interested in a mixed method study. I can add the words mixed method. And my results are mixed method studies. If I was looking for a different kind of research methods, such as focus groups, which is qualitative, I could look for articles that use focus groups with the same kind of keyword configuration. Similarly, if I'm looking for quantitative or statistical analysis, I could do quantitative or statistics, and I get different results. Keep in mind this is not foolproof. Always read through the abstract and the methodology to see what methods are used.